So I was working on a separate project with HBS. We started having this conversation about women and motherhood. That's how it just basically happened. We had conversations and we were like, what if we did this? What if we started these conversations around myths that surround women, myths that surround women during pregnancy? How do we unpack that? How do we package it in a way that will resonate with the African woman? There's so many things that women are going through right now that we don't get to talk about.
I mean, naturally, when you get married, African context, immediately, where are the babies? Where are the babies? And for us, that didn't happen.
There is regret, yes. I love my children, but they came at the wrong time.
So I knew that is not what I should be thinking, and I didn't talk about it. I should talk about it. I should be grateful. I should be happy that I'm a mother.
So I knew I loved my daughter. Like mentally, I knew I loved her. But in my heart, I didn't feel the overwhelming love.
I hated my life. I completely hated my life.
We needed this platform to talk. I feel safe in this platform. I feel like I'm home in this platform. And I hope someone out there will hear this story and be encouraged that, hey, I'm okay.
These hard questions and these hard topics or themes that we are discussing right now, heavy topics. I mean, no one wants to talk about those things. No one likes to hear about those things. But then again, why are we not having those conversations? Why are we not talking about them? We have had the opportunity for people to say, you know, that aha moment when you're like, oh my God, this is what I've been thinking, but no one has had the guts to come out and actually say it. And I don't think I have said this enough, but I thank the women who came forward and actually allowed themselves to be interviewed, because some of those things that came out of the content from the interviews, I don't personally think I would have gone on TV to say them. And a couple of people have also challenged me to say, you know, now that we've had these conversations, what next? What happens? What do we do? What do we do? You've opened up wounds, you've opened up pathways, thinkings. What do we do with those? A lot of women have been sharing with us on DM about wanting to hear more about different topics. So either them sharing themselves or hearing about something, a particular topic from another woman. Wherever you're sitting, I want you to be that woman who hears my story or hears any of the women who are interviewed, their story, and I want you to go there and say, yeah, I resonate with that. And I'm glad that you said what you said, you know, because I know that I'm not alone.
There's something you've mentioned, that there is indeed a gap in so many things. The feminist generation before and the one that's coming, mothers before and us and the ones that are coming. I want to ask, what do you think was the cause for, because the information was there, and I wouldn't want to imagine that the resources were lacking. Maybe they weren't as many as they've come to be. But what do you think was the cause of the information and the, you know, like what UnMothering is doing? Why wasn't it there before? Not in the format it's in, but in any other format before any of us, you know, became mothers. What do you feel was lacking so that we don't perpetuate it? Because we might think we are creating a solution, but maybe there's some things that we still have from before. What do you think, Amina? What do you think was lacking?
That's that.
Who do you think
I was looking at Janice to answer the question, but I think for UnMothering specifically,
right.
And the reason why it worked so much better as a campaign rather than a documentary, because if we did the documentary, it would have just been one and we would have just moved on.
Right.
I think it was two things. So the fact that other women, and please, people on ground can say if it's true, I believe that hearing someone else speak some things that you've been thinking to yourself, them saying it out loud,
right.
I think to you, you're like, okay, that person could say those things out loud. And I'll give you an example. The day we went to do the interview with Jerry,
right.
I was there.
Yeah.
And some of the things she was saying, I was like, I don't think we can say that. I don't think we can say those things. I don't think it's the same thing that, and I'm glad Sylvia is here, and I'm so happy you're here. The day we went to also interview Sylvia, and to give you context to those two videos, is regretting motherhood. She was saying, oh, I regret having my children at this time. I shouldn't have done that. And Sylvia was talking about, why did you think lesbian mothers would mother their children differently? So for me, in my head, I was like, oh my God, we can't say those things. We will be crucified. People will kill us. But those things were the things that literally made other people say, wow, thank you for sharing this. And now I feel more confident to speak up on what this, So I believe we raised not only awareness, but gave people back some of their, their, what's the word I'm looking for? Their agents. Did we give them agency, really? But we give them a voice.
And you also gave people permission.
Yeah, is it really permission? But it's like, you can say those things. No one is going to crucify you. You're not going to die. Yeah, and even if someone comes and gives you ish about it, you should just say, you know what? I'm unmothered.
Hey, we need those in t-shirt format. Auntie Leila, t-shirts for I am unmothered. But Caroline, what do you think as well? Like, what was lacking, and why was this whole process necessary and very powerful?
So I have a very academic response for that one. Okay,
I'm
not going to do that. But just to, carry on with what the line that Amina was thinking, is that there's something that we say as a buzzword and nobody really stops to think about it, which is socialization. Every now and then someone will just say, no, we were socialized this way. No, this is not African. This is not our way of doing things. And that is really what socialization is doing. And I know I speak for very many people in this space when I say that how I was socialized was to be a woman who is considered a lady and a proper woman in society. That is how I was brought up. That is where I had so many things and so many conversations about, you cannot just go having sex with everyone. You cannot just go. There's a picture that I usually see on social media and other spaces about skipping stages. You cannot just come from school and skip marriage and get children. You have to follow the procedure as it's laid down for you. That is what socialization looks like. And unlearning something that has been instilled in you since birth is extremely difficult. I think people underestimate the challenge that is unlearning. You're literally trying to tell me to forget everything that I know and learn new things. And I'm trying to tell you, if my ancestors and ancestors of ancestors were doing this, whom do you think I am? Yeah. I need to follow the trend. Right. So what UnMothering is supposed to do, and what the gap was, is that nobody was actually developing or putting up a platform or a space where women can actually learn loudly. We are all learning slowly and individually and in private spaces, so that when I come and meet Janice later, I'm like, you mean you not walk like that? But I never gave her space to be walk. I never gave her space to realize that these are my rights and I need to embrace those rights. So when we talk about the gaps that were there, that was one of it. The space. People to speak. When Jerry speaks, sorry Jerry, but when Jerry speaks,
brave space.
One person or all of us may just decide, no, that one is crazy. She's psycho. Did you hear the things she was saying? Like, who says those things? Yeah. But when Jerry, when Amina, when Caroline, when Janice speak, then it's difficult for you to call the rest of the world psycho. Like, when we get to 10, they are not psycho. Yeah. There's some truth to it, So that is what we need to get to. Yeah. But before I lose this thought, I also need to say that outside of the social learning and unlearning, there's also what we call policy and law. So I'm a lawyer by training. I work on policy development. And there's the assumption of loftiness when you talk about policy. That's like high scale. Sasa mama mboga atasema nini, utaisema aje kwa mama mboga. But we forget that policy is our daily life. We're complaining about economies right now because there are laws and policies and guidelines and executive orders behind the economy that is right now. So what is our role in that space? And the role becomes demystifying policy and law to the extent that we need to involve people and show both the community and the policy holders and duty bearers, that if you have to develop something that speaks for us as a society, you need to involve us. And if you're going to involve us, you need to hear the voices that are. But those voices have to come up. So this platform makes sure that the voices are heard. So if we constantly say that we need maternity leave and we need spaces to breastfeed and spaces to be able to, express. Thank you. Thank you. Spaces to express. Then we will say it and say it loudly enough for everyone to hear, and for that one person in an office to not be crucified for saying that they need space and they need flexi time. So that, in my opinion, is what was missing and what we are doing right now.
Okay. All snaps, fingers, all. We are done. I feel like you have expressed everything. I'm joking. But now you go back. Let's go back to policy and to something as simple as mothering. Just being a mother in Kenya. Are there any policies, laws, anything that we can I guess as you said, there's a tax law, and then I'll go read different types of taxes we have. What is there around being a mom, raising children, as you said, under safe? What are the guidelines based on this country? Or are we just out here on our own? And are our voices so important that as we build this movement, we will now start to create things that currently don't exist? What do you think? Janice is ready.
So, policies are there.
Right.
They are not understood, but in many cases, they are almost political plays, because either we want to check a box, correct, Carol? We want to check a box, but we also want to be correctly aligned with the direction that the world is taking, or the political landscape. It doesn't really focus on that person who actually needs that protection, who needs to feel safe to go to a police station and report an incident of rape and not be ridiculed by the police. Not to be told that the way you dress puts you at risk. Those are the things that we need to do. A lot of it has to do with behavior change at a very individual level. Back to what Carol was saying about how we've been socialized. We've been taught as women, there are certain conversations we just can't have because we will be challenging patriarchy. But God, there are certain conversations we cannot have in the presence of our children. I am very proud to say that I'm here with my daughter today because she needs to learn. I mean, she's a young woman already, right? So this is a space for her, because these are the conversations we need to start having anyway. So policies exist, but they are often created to check a box, to be politically correct, but they're rarely ever, I don't say never, but they're rarely developed or implemented with the best interest of the person who it's supposed to serve. So, and that's where we talk about collective efforts, because you have a document that exists, it's even in law. For example, FGM, outlawed, right? The law of Kenya actually says it's illegal to actually subject a woman to female genital mutilation. Though I actually had a different conversation another day about, what about circumcision for men? Do we give them a choice? People want to make that conversation move away from what the harmful aspects of it are, to make it a conversation around equity between men and women. But this is a practice that is outlawed. But how is it enacted? How is it enforced? You have cases of communities crossing borders to go and circumcise their girls and bring, but the government knows, we know those things are happening. What are we doing about it at an individual level, collectively as a community? So policies are there and they're great. But I think we also have a sense of apathy as Kenyans in terms of our engagement in the development of those policies. And whenever I see these adverts in the newspaper for public participation, how many of us have actually gone to a public participation forum? By show of hands.
I went online. There was one online.
We have 2. Can you imagine? Out of a group of close to 50 people, only 2. If we do not participate in those conversations, who are the policies for? How do we even call, speak truth to power to these guys and say, that's ridiculous. You think you know what you're doing, but we want to tell you, we have sat together as young women, we know what is ailing us. You can't sit together in a boardroom and develop a policy document and then come and tell us, here it is, support us. But we have to be the people who get to the front of that conversation and say, it exists. Like now CIF is supporting the review of the adolescent sexual reproductive health policy, where there's a lot of contention around the age of consent for a young girl to access contraception. It is very contentious. The church has a different view. The state has a different view. The users of the services, the adolescents themselves, have a very different view. But whose responsibility is it to bring all those people to the table to create consensus? If we don't do it on behalf of our children, who will? So that's a question I pose back to us,
Which is now I'll put it to us and also to the movement that will be UnMothering and the Brave Spaces. So what do we do? What do we do going forward? Do we have more of these conversations, and then what? What do you think, Caroline? As we wind up, how do we move forward as a movement, and what are our responsibilities?
So, responsibilities. Let me start with the hard one. People want things, but they do not want to do things. So, it's. I think the responsibility starts with us talking, and I think some of us have already taken responsibility. Putting your foot forward, saying that this is something that is not normal. I'm looking for a synonym to that because normal sounds wrong, but this is something that is not common, not usual, but we're doing it. It's people being brave enough to speak about their experiences. There's one thing that I always love to correct, because I am doing a research right now on the relationship between funding, policy, and community, and why there are gaps in the three spaces. And part of the research is actually looking at the disrespect that is to society's practice, norms, and voice. And that is where the disconnect starts coming up, because there's usually the illusion of I am the expert, you're the subject. I am the one who knows, we have to tell you because we have to be able to govern you. And that is where people need to start taking responsibility. Right. I might be a cabinet secretary. I am okay. Yeah.
Speak. Yes. Just say what you want to say.
I might be a cabinet secretary sitting in this position, and my role as a cabinet secretary working on social security and gender is to ensure that my constituents, who are the people in need of social security and gender, are actually well addressed. I am not sitting in this position so that I can exert my power to the community that is. So responsibility is both ways. Community has to take responsibility. We have to voice out. We have to create spaces for people to voice out. We have to participate to the extent that we can, because some expected participation is completely unreasonable. And that is why when you sit in a space and ask how many have gone to public participation, you get like 2-3 hands. And then that is almost instantly assumed as apathy, which sometimes it's the impossibility of that particular event. You put a public participation session when that was the day that I was supposed to go to my shop and actually get money. So which one am I choosing? To come sit here and talk, and then you don't get my considerations, or to actually go get food for my children? We have to be very considerate and respectful of the traditions, culture, norms, and the space that society has occupied. And if that starts to happen, then we start developing things that resonate with the people that we're developing them for. So that is where my responsibility point comes in. And secondly, we also need to, and I'm going to speak as a funder, and I'm going to speak for the funding space. The funding space has to start resonating with what they are trying to address. These lofty, big ideas of international forums and speaking of how things are good and how things are not good, and putting it on paper and developing very fantastically good reports, has to stop, and people have to start realizing that you need to consult, speak with the people that you claim to want to help. Put them at the center and let them make decisions. So those are the things that we need to do, we need to start doing going forward. And this is where I have to stop if I lose my job.
The revolution must be funded. The revolution must be funded. If anything, we leave with this session. That's that.
And also, when Caroline does become the CS, we will hold you accountable in a nice way, because we will know that you're someone who understands what it is we are bringing to the table. So we're just speaking things into existence today. Just to finish off with you, Amina, yes, what do you see the UnMothering movement doing? What do you see these brave spaces doing in terms of policy, in terms of building the knowledge economy around the issues that young women and mothers face? Where do you see this going?
So,
as we close?
For me, UnMothering the woman, like I was saying, this is not what I had imagined it to be. 2 years later, I'm thinking of a movement. It's something that both Janice and Caro have been telling me. And I'm actually so glad that both of you are here, because they're the face of advocacy and policy. What I foresee for UnMothering the woman is having a 1 million, 2 million, 5 million strong group of members who can come up and share their voices about certain things that are happening in their communities. So my vision is to go Africa-wide. UnMotheringTheWoman.Africa has gone live today. So on there, we're going to share resources we're going to share our videos, we're going to share our resources, we're going to share, if you want to get a lawyer or a counselor or any policy, anything that you want or need based on any topic that we have covered is going to be on the site. What we are going to hope for is to create a membership portal. That's now the next step, as we focus towards advocacy and policy. So when we have a public forum invitation, we are going to come 2 million strong to say, this is what we want. This is our voice. So that's what we are going to do. That's my vision as we go forward towards UnMothering. And I invite you all to be part of us.
Thank you so much. Guys, that deserves a round of applause. Thank you so much, Caroline, Janice, and Amina, and for everyone who was listening. So let's go over to the next conversation.
Thank you, everyone.